Shalom everyone. We are continuing our limud of Sefer Yeshayahu, again a very, very difficult book. And we are beginning with Perek Hey. And Perek Hey is a general nevuah about Am Yisrael, both the 10 tribes that have not yet been exiled, and Malchus Yehuda in its waning years. And it starts off with a song or a poem describing a vineyard. And the Navi says, Ashira na liyedidi, I will sing on behalf of my beloved one. That is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is our beloved one. Shiras daidi lekarmai, I will sing the song or the poem. Again, Shira is lavda. Shira in Tanakh, even Shiras Hayam, doesn't always mean music. It's more of a poem. I will sing the song of my beloved, that he sings to his vineyard or about his vineyard. And it describes the following. Kerem haya liyadidi bekeren ben shemen. My beloved one had a vineyard in the corner of Ben Shemen. Shemen is shaman, fat, in a very fertile land. Vayaz kehu. And my Yedid built a fence around it to protect it from animals and ganovim. Vayisak leyu, and he removed stones from the field to be able to plant vines. Vayitayu seirek, and he planted vines. Vayiven migdol betocho, and in the middle he built a tower or a building, so there could be watchmen who would be watching the vineyard. V'gam yekev chatzavbo, and he dug a wine press where the grapes could be trampled. Vayikav lasei sanovim, and my Yedid was hoping that from this carefully cultivated vineyard there would be beautiful, tasty grapes. And instead the vineyard, as it were, betrayed him. Vayas ba'ushim, and it produced sour, immature grapes. This was the vineyard. V'yata, and now, yeshayahu Yerushalayim, you Jews who dwell in Yerushalayim, yeshayahu, and all the other people who dwell in Malchus Yehuda, this includes Yehuda and Binyamin, shiftu na beini ubein karmi, so Hashem is speaking. Let us judge between you and my vineyard, between me and my vineyard, meaning the Jewish people are God's vineyard. Ma lasais od lekarmi v'lo asisi ba. What more could I have done for my vineyard that I didn't do? Madua kivisi lasos anavim. Why did I hope to have grapes, v'yas ba'ushim, and instead I have sour fruit? V'yata oidia na eschem eis asher anochi oseh lekarmi. And now I will tell you, what do I do to a vineyard that no matter how much you try to work the vineyard, you get sour fruit? Haser misuchaso, I will remove its protective fence. V'haya leva'er, it will be now exposed to the grazing of animals. Parotz gidro, its fence will be broken down. V'haya lemirmas, and both animals and people will trample on it. V'yashiseyu basa, I will make it desolate. Lo yizamer, its branches will not be pruned. V'lo yeoder, the soil will not be hoed. V'yallah shamir v'shayas, and there'll be weeds and thorns that are growing. V'yal ha'avim atzaveh mihamtir alav matar. Hashem is saying, and on such a vineyard, I will even command the clouds that they should not allow any rain to fall. It's a worthless kerem. It doesn't do its job. I will simply abandon it. And now here we have the ultimate message of this. Ki kerem Hashem tzavakos Beis Yisrael. The house of Israel. This includes both the 10 tribes and even Malchus Yehuda, which at this time is sinning. They are the vineyard of Hashem. Remember, we say on Yom Kippur, Anu karmecha, we are your vineyard. V'ata notrenu, and you are the one who watches us, who protects us. But now the nevuah is, you are a kerem that Hashem cultivated. You are a kerem that Hashem built a migdal, a tower to protect. That's referring to the Beis HaMikdash. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us all of the things that would keep us spiritually healthy. Torah and mitzvahs, they are the fence that protect us against the Yetzer Hara. And still, instead of producing wine and good grapes, our actions are like sour grapes. Kerem Hashem Tzavakos Beis Yisrael, the Jewish people are the vineyard of Hashem. V'ish Yehuda Neta Shashuav, and the people of Yehuda are the planting of the delight that Hashem got delight in. Vayikav la mishpat, and Hashem hopes that there would be justice. V'hinei mispach. So this is a play on words. Mispach is similar to mishpat. It's only one letter difference. And mispach means leprosy, sapachas. Hashem wanted mishpat, and instead there's mispach, like tsaras. Litzdaka, Hashem wants righteousness and charity, and instead, hinei tsa'aka. So instead of tzedaka, again it's a pun, tsa'aka, there is the crying of the oppressed, who are cheated and denigrated. And now the Musar continues with a series of Musar that begins with the idea of hoi, alas, as if Hashem himself is crying and moaning and groaning over the moral churban of Klal Yisrael. Hoi, magie bayis babayis, sode basode yakrivu. Alas to those who attach one house to another house, a field to another field, they draw near. Again, this refers to the idea that, let's imagine I'm a rich guy with a big plot of land, and there's a poor guy with a little house on a tiny bit of land. And what I would do is I would find a way to push him out of his land so I could expand my field. I could expand my house at the expense of the Yasai and the Ani and the Almana. So those people who attach their house to a house, and they attach their field to a field, until there's no makayim for the Aniyim, for the Almanas, for the Yasaimim. Vayishavtem levatchem, and you alone dwell, meaning rich and powerful people. V'keref haaretz. V'yaznei Hashem tzavakos. And this injustice reaches, their cry reaches the ears of Hashem. Imloi batim rabim l'shama yiyu. That's what's going to happen is these great, powerful mansions are going to be reduced to shama, to desolation. V'toivim, gedalim v'toivim, these great, great houses, me'ein yoshev. There'll be a galus, there'll be a chorban, and nobody will be living in them. Ki aseres simdei kerem, yasu basachas, v'zera chaimer yaseh eifa. Again, this is referring to the fact that all of you rich and powerful people that simply build your fortunes on the back of those who are poor and friendless, without protection, Hashem will bring curses on the land that you can have 10 pairs of 10 measures of the vineyard. This is a very large measure of a vineyard, will only produce a small amount of grapes, and a whole chaimer, that's 30 saw of seed, will only produce 1 ephah, which is only 1/30. Meaning, all of the wealth you have will be taken away from you. So that's the first hoi. Alas for those who cheat and dispossess the poor and defenseless. Hoi number 2. Hoi mashkime babayker shecher yurdaifu. Alas to the balei gaiva who get up early in the morning to pursue intoxicating drink. They start drinking early in the morning. Miachrei banesha, if they stay up late at night. Yayin lat yadlikem, so the wine that they drink will fire them up. V'haya kinor v'nevel taifa chalil v'yayin mishteim. And all they do is make parties where they have musical instruments, they have harps and lyres, kind of like guitars. Tof v'chalil, drums, chalil, flutes, and they drink wine at their endless parties. V'espayel Hashem lo yabitu. They do not look at the creation of Hashem. That means they don't learn the Torah. Umaise yadav leira'u, and they pay no attention to all that Hashem does, all of the gevurais, and all of the nisam, and all of the chesed that Hashem has done. Lachein gala ami mibli das, and because of this lack of knowledge, lack of paying attention to what is important in life, my nation shall go into exile. Uchavaydai, and all of its glory, misei ra'av, shall be people that will die of famine. V'hamono, and all of its multitude, tzichei tzama, will suffer thirst. So the chen, and therefore hirchiva sha'il nafsha, the grave will open up itself and swallow them. Para pia, it will swallow these rishayim libli chok, without limit. Vayarad hadara v'hamona, and all of its glory and all of its multitudes of sha'ona, and all of the many people who think they're so powerful. The Allah's ba, the sha'il, it's personifying the sha'il. The sha'il, the grave, will rejoice in all that it will eat up. So again, it's a nevuah of galus, of poverty, of chorban, of death. Vayishach adam, and all of the important people will be bent over as slaves. Vayishpal ish, and they will be lowered. V'yenei gavayim, and the eyes of the high and mighty, tishpalna, will be lowered. And now we have a pasuk that we actually recite. From this pasuk was taken the nusach that we recite on Rosh Hashanah. Vayigba Hashem tzivakot b'mishpat, v'hakel hakadosh nikdash b'tzedakah. And God on that day will be elevated because of the judgment that He brings on the Rishayim. So the whole world will know that Hashem is the God who rewards goodness and punishes evil. So on one hand, God will be elevated by the mishpat of the Rishayim, v'hakel hakadosh nikdash b'tzedakah, and He will be sanctified by the righteousness and the mercy that He shows the tzaddikim who are worthy of that chesed. And this is right before we say on Rosh Hashanah, Baruch atah Hashem HaMelech HaKadosh. V'ra'u kavasim kedabram. And on all of these rich and fancy estates, will now be barren, the sheep are going to simply graze where the houses were. V'charvais mechim, and the desolate ruins of the fat Rishayim, Garim yechelu, the strangers will eat them. Now the strangers either means the animals, or some learn that eventually, of course it wasn't right away, eventually the tzaddikim, who are strangers to this gashmias and strangers to this decadence, will enjoy that land. Right, so that is the second hay. Now we have the third alas. Hay Meishchei ha'avain b'chavlei shov. They pull sin to themselves with ropes of nothingness. V'cha'avos ha'agalah chata'a. And sin is like the ropes that pull a wagon. So this is a little bit of a difficult pasuk to interpret. The Gemara in Sukkah explains it this way, that when a person first starts sinning, the attraction of the sin is like a rope that's pulling him, but it's a rope that's shoved, that's very weak, meaning to say, it would be relatively easy to be kovesh ma'yetzara. It's a very weak rope that's pulling me. So if I'm willing to offer the resistance, I can break the rope. So initially, it's moshech me with a rope of almost nothing. A little inner strength, and you would win. Unfortunately, we allow ourselves to be pulled, even by chavlei shav. But the more and more we do a chet, the more mushrish I become, the stronger it grabs hold of me. Eventually it becomes a powerful rope that could even pull a wagon. And that rope is so thick that if I try to resist it, it's going to pull me along. And that's the nature of chet, that the more you do it, the more you become addicted, and the harder it is to pull away. And that's why it starts off as chavlei shav, a rope of nothingness, and it eventually becomes the rope that can pull a wagon. So alas to those who habituate themselves into Aveira. Ha'imrim, and they even say, Yimaher yachisha ma'aseyu. Laman nira, you tell us, all the Nevi'im say, God is going to punish us. Let it come, let it hurry up. Meaning they have no pachad. They say nothing's going to happen. Let God show us what he can do. Vasikrav v'tavaya atzas kadesh yisrael v'neidah. And they say, let all of the counsel of the Holy One of Israel, let it come so we should know. This is the ultimate defiance. As if they're saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, bring it on. We don't care. Fourth, Hay ha'imrim l'ra tov v'la tov ra. This is a new madrega. Sometimes a Rasha sins, and that's very bad. The taiva is too strong. He's not miskaber. But at least he knows what is right and what is wrong. But then there's another madrega where you literally convince yourself that evil is good and good is evil. You change the value system. I don't want to be marich, but that's kind of what happens in modern society with gay marriage and other things. It's not simply a question of a person being nichshal b'chet, but a person literally seeing it as good. Alas, because it's much harder to do tshuva. When I know what is right and what is wrong, even if I'm doing things wrong, at least I know what I have to change. But when I redefine the ra to be taiv and the taiv to be ra, how am I ever going to do tshuva? I think the bad is good. So alas to those who say to evil that it is good. V'la taiv ra, and to those who look at the good and they call it evil. Samim chayshech lior, they turn darkness and they call it light. Vior l'chayshech, and they look at the light and they call it darkness. Samim mar l'masaik, they take bitter and they call it sweet. Umasaik lamar, and they take sweet and good and they call it bitter. And the fifth tay, hay chachamim b'eineihem, v'neged pneim nevainim. Alas to those people who think they are wise and their faces are full of understanding. They think they know it all and therefore they're not willing to accept musar or accept hadracha. And the sixth hay, gibayrim lishtais yayin. They're so heroic in their drinking of wine. Anshe chayil, they are men of valor. Limsoch shechor, to mix their intoxicating drink. So, matzdike Russia ekev shechat, and in the heels of bribery, they exonerate the guilty. V'tzitkas tzadikim yasir imenu, and the innocence of the righteous they remove. In other words, they pervert justice. You have a tzaddik and a Russia, and that refers not so much to general righteousness, but in a din Torah, or a based in procedure, a court procedure, one guy is innocent, one guy is guilty. Through sheichat, they're matzdik the Russia, and they take away the innocence of the tzaddik. Right? These are the 6 hoys of this parak, and therefore it culminates with the following prophecy. Lochein, because of all of this, ki achol kash l'shainesh, as a fire will consume straw, v'chashash lahava, and stubble will be consumed by a lahava, by a torch. Yirpe means it will weaken it, it will destroy it. Sharsham kamak yiya. Their root, meaning their source, their strength of these rich, spoiled, decadent, immoral, self-righteous people, their root, kamak yiya, will disintegrate. Mak is something that disintegrates. Upircham, and their beautiful flower, ke'avak yaleh, will go up like dust. Ki masu es tairas Hashem tzavakos, they have despised the Torah of Hashem. V'yes imras kadosh Yisrael neyetzo, and they have rejected the words of the Holy One of Israel. Al kain, and therefore, chara af Hashem biyamo, Hashem's fury against his people is great. Vayet yado alav, and he will send forth his hands. Vayakeo, he will smite him. Vayirgazu haharim, and the mountains themselves will shake. Again, this is poetic, and Rashi says this is a metaphor for the kings of the world will be astonished at the destruction that will befall both the 10 tribes and Malchus Yehuda. The kings will shake. Vatihi nivlatam kisucha bekerev haaretz, and the carcasses of the many Jews that are going to be killed, right? Their nevela kisucha will be scattered like saliva. It's a lesson of spitting. Their nevela will be scattered bekerev chutzot, in the middle of the streets. And b'chol zeis, and after all of these things, lo shav apo, Hashem's anger will not be finished. V'yod yado netuya, and the hand will still be outstretched. Meaning, the pasuk is basically saying that we are not even describing the horrors of the Golus. We've described some things. Od yado netuya. V'nasa nes lagayim, Hashem will raise a flag summoning the nations to attack Am Yisrael, merachak, from a far distance. V'sharak lo miksei haaretz, and Hashem will whistle, like you whistle when you summon someone. V'nei mehera kal yavo. Now this is now describing, interestingly enough, this is switching gears, and this is describing Sancheriv and the Malchei Ashur, who are going against the 10 tribes. Okay, that didn't happen yet. And he says, I am whistling for that faraway nation that will come very quickly. This is Ashur, Assyria. Ein oyef, there will be no exhaustion. V'yein koshel bo, there will be no stumbling. They will come miraculously quickly to Eretz Yisrael. Lo yanum v'lo yishan, things that we normally say about Hashem, we say about Ashur. They will not sleep or slumber. Lo niftach ezer chalatzav, as if the army will not rest. They will not open their belt, right? At the end of the day, you open your belt. They will not ungird their belt. Lo nitach seruchna alav, the shoelaces will not be untied. Asher chitzav shinunim, the arrows of Ashur are sharp and ready to shoot. V'chol kashtosav yeruchot, and all of the bows are ready to be shot. Parsos susav kitzar nechshavu, the hoofs of the war horses, kitzar, will hit the ground like hard rocks. V'galgilav kasufa, and the wheels of the chariots will come like a loud storm. Shagalo kalavi, and this is all describing Ashur, and it's describing the 10 tribes, the exile of the 10 tribes. Shagalo kalavi, it will roar like a lion. Yisha kakefirim, again, roar like the young lions. Vayinom, it will scream. Vayochaz taraf, it will grab the prey like a lion. Vayaflit, and it will spit out the remnant. V'yein matzil, and no one can save you from that lion. Vayinom olav biyomu kinamas yam, and there will be a scream, again, it's a little ambiguous, the scream of the enemy or the scream of the victim. Like the roar of the sea. v'nibat la'aretz, and when the land will be seen, hine cheshech, all there will be is darkness, tsar, v'or chashach bi'arifeha. Meaning, or chashach, the light of the sun will be dark in the deaths of all of these victims. Again, it is. Now, let me point out a few things. It is Be'ikr describing the exile of the 10 tribes, but remember, even in Malchus Yehuda, even though there was a great, great miracle that Yerushalayim was saved, and 185,000 soldiers of Sancheriv were miraculously killed the first night of Pesach, Assyria did conquer and decimate and kill much of the rest of Malchus Yehuda. So again, the Nevuah is a little ambiguous because it does not tell us exactly what it's talking about, but it's talking about on some level both the Aseres Hashvatim and the balance, the rest of Malchus Yehuda, other than Yerushalayim itself. And it says the light will turn into the darkness, Ba'arifah, with those who were killed in the neck, meaning those who died, like Arufa. So that is the Nevuah of, which is called the Shiras HaKerem. It starts off as the poem of the vineyard, and it goes into a denunciation of the sins of Klal Yisrael, and the awful, awful exile of the 10 tribes, and even the decimation of Malchus Yehuda.